4 years, there were whispers. 4 years, there were rumors. And for years, there was silence. But not anymore. Tasha K has finally spoken, and what she's alleging has sent shockwaves through the reality TV world. Just days ago, Porsha Williams publicly opened up about her sexuality. Much of the internet framed the moment as healing, growth, and self-discovery. But according to claims now circulating, that narrative may only be half the story. Sources allege that Porsha's so-called awakening isn't new at all. It may be the soft reveal of a double life that's been quietly unfolding for years. Not just alleged affairs with men, but with women as well. Old screenshots. Reality show moments. Party footage once brushed off as just rumors. Now, those pieces are being re-examined as part of a much larger pattern. And this is where the story takes a darker turn. Because Tasha K isn't just alleging infidelity. She's pointing to what she claims is a deeply troubling health controversy, one that may have been deliberately kept out of the public eye. Allegations of secrecy. Allegations of risk. Allegations that people close to Porsha were privately concerned long before the public ever knew. Now the internet is divided. Some say it's clout chasing. Others say when this many voices start echoing the same claims, something doesn't add up. Because this is no longer just about sexuality. It's about trust. It's about betrayal. And it's about what happens when alleged secrets refuse to stay buried. And the most unsettling question of all is this. If none of this is true, why does the noise keep getting louder? Music cuts. Screen fades to black. Text on screen. This story isn't over. And what comes next may be far more explosive.
I said absolutely nothing, but then something kind of piqued my interest about this conversation here, because she started talking about, because of my marriage, I think I'm gay. I'd consider being gay. You don't consider being gay, but go ahead, Porsha.
Lonely. I can't connect with other men. It's like people trying to introduce me, but it's just when it's not the same, it's not the same. So I'm gonna do it different this time. I'm gonna be alone until I'm whole, and then when I'm whole, then I will, open myself back up, so I don't make the same mistake again.
How wide we talking?
When you go through a bad enough breakup, you're like, I don't like nobody. Like you're like, I don't like nobody. I was sitting there, I was like, do I like women enough? Can I get with a woman? Like, who can come in and fill this void? Like, oh my God, somebody. I have got to be able to sit with someone.
4 years, Porsha Williams built a public image rooted in resilience. A woman who survived heartbreak. A woman who walked away from failed marriages stronger. A woman who, no matter the controversy, always landed back on her feet. But now, that image is under a microscope. When Porsha recently spoke about her sexuality, the internet initially embraced the moment as vulnerability. Healing. Self-discovery. A woman finally owning her truth. But new allegations are forcing people to ask a much harder question. Was this really about self-discovery? Or was it damage control? According to sources familiar with the situation, Porsha's decision to speak openly didn't come out of nowhere. It came after years of whispers that refused to die quietly. Whispers about behavior behind closed doors. Whispers about relationships that never made it on camera. Whispers about a private life that looked very different from the one viewers were shown. And that's where Tasha K enters the conversation. She isn't framing this moment as a breakthrough. She's framing it as a reveal that came too late. According to her claims, what Porsha is calling healing now is something people around her allegedly noticed years ago, not as growth, but as a pattern. A pattern marked by emotional distance in relationships. A pattern of unexplained separations. And, according to multiple sources, a pattern that allegedly included intimacy with women long before the public was ever invited into that conversation. What makes this moment so volatile isn't just the allegation itself, it's the timing. Because just days after the internet applauded Porsha for finding herself, critics began pointing out something unsettling. Her words didn't sound like discovery. They sounded like justification. And once that idea took hold, the narrative shifted fast.
It'll come. But I'm like, and I think that now that I'm realizing that, because what I've decided is that I'm not going to look for it anymore. So I'm not going to push myself into dating or anyone or trying to figure out, who do I like? Who could I be around? Because this is probably also part of healing.
Healing.
I mean, just sitting with this.
What's the healing?
Sitting with being alone. Sitting with the loss. And let myself heal the loss. And I know I'm crying right now, but I feel good every day. Each day, I get better. Each day, I feel stronger. But
she explains that she no longer wants to search for connection. She says she's choosing to be alone. She speaks about healing, loss, and emotional exhaustion. She admits it's hard. She admits she cries. She admits that loneliness has become part of her daily life. On the surface, it sounds honest. But critics argue this moment wasn't about healing. It was about resetting the narrative. Because instead of addressing specific rumors or past behavior, the focus shifted away from explanation and toward emotion. Pain, vulnerability, isolation. And that shift matters. In media strategy, emotion often replaces explanation when explanation becomes dangerous. According to analysts, it's a classic redirection tactic. You don't deny, you don't confirm, you humanize. And at first, it worked. Clips from the interview spread rapidly across social media. Fans called her brave. Supporters praised her for choosing herself. But others weren't convinced, because while the internet was applauding, something else was unfolding quietly in the background. Screenshots resurfaced. Old reality show moments were recirculated. Party footage from years ago suddenly looked different when viewed through a new lens. Moments once dismissed as jokes. Interactions once written off as playful. Now, to some, they appeared as pieces of a much larger puzzle. According to sources close to production circles, there had long been conversations that never made it to air. Conversations about boundaries. About blurred lines. About cast members who allegedly felt uncomfortable, but stayed silent to avoid backlash. Those stories were never confirmed. They were never denied. They simply stayed buried, until now. And this is where the narrative turns darker, because Tasha K isn't just alleging infidelity. She's alleging exposure. According to her claims, some of the people closest to Porsha were privately concerned about more than just cheating.
Ho, ho. The gay part really kind of made me go, not Porsha. Really, we're gonna go there. We're gonna go that you've been abused by so many men, even though you went looking for this lady's husband. Got him, didn't even tell him why you wanted a divorce. Didn't even tell him you wanted a divorce, just divorced him. Didn't answer no question. It's about, oh, you hurt, you're going through so much. And now you're like, will a woman be with me? Wasn't there talks, I think, between her and Drew of Porsha allegedly like sleeping with women, or was it Candy? What?
They were allegedly worried about health risks that were never publicly disclosed. These are serious claims, and they are being framed carefully. No documents have been released. No medical records have been shown. But the allegation alone has been enough to shift the tone of the conversation entirely. This is no longer about identity. It's about responsibility. According to sources, questions were raised behind the scenes about whether people involved with Porsha were fully informed about potential risks. Those questions were allegedly brushed aside, ignored, minimized, or dismissed. And that's where the conversation becomes deeply uncomfortable. Because if even a fraction of these claims are true, what's being debated isn't sexuality. It's trust. Tasha K's critics say she's reckless. That she's chasing attention. That she's exploiting a sensitive topic. But her supporters argue something else entirely. They argue that when similar allegations surface from multiple directions, former partners, industry insiders, and now media personalities, it stops looking like coincidence. And that's why the internet has fractured. One side insists this is a targeted smear campaign, a bitter attack fueled by resentment and clout. The other believes silence has protected too much for too long. Because here's the detail that keeps resurfacing, none of this appeared overnight. These weren't new rumors. They were old conversations given new oxygen. And when Porsha chose to speak now, when she framed everything as healing, critics argue she may have underestimated how closely people were watching. Because in an age of archived footage and digital memory, narratives don't disappear. They wait.
I always said Porsha ain't coochie, but listen, here's the thing. But it just put me in the mind frame of like, wasn't she preaching back in the day against LGBTQism? Didn't she preach and say it was against God the whole time? And now you considering whether or not you should be with a woman? These women better hide their purses out here for real. Hide your Birkins. She gonna take them. Go ahead, Porsha.
Archived footage resurfaced from a time before reality television fame, showing Porsha delivering a religious message that framed LGBTQ identity as something to be corrected, prayed for, or saved. The contrast was stark. On one side, a woman now discussing fluidity, loneliness, and openness. On the other, a woman who once publicly condemned the same identities she is now said to be exploring. Critics didn't see growth, they saw contradiction without explanation. Clips from that sermon circulated online within hours. Side-by-side comparisons flooded timelines. Comment sections echoed the same question: which version is real? Supporters argued people evolve, that belief systems change, that growth isn't linear. But skeptics argued something else entirely. Growth, they said, requires acknowledgement. Accountability requires clarity. And neither had been offered. Instead, there was silence, no clarification, no apology, no context, just the sudden appearance of a new narrative that reframed years of rumors as personal awakening. That's why this story refuses to die. According to sources familiar with the situation, whispers about Porsha's alleged relationships with women didn't originate from fans. They allegedly came from people inside the same circles she moved in: industry insiders, production staff, and other cast members. None of this is proven, but the consistency of the claims has raised eyebrows. And consistency is dangerous. When different people from different places tell variations of the same story, it becomes harder to dismiss everything as coincidence. Music fades into a low, ominous hum. What makes stories like this dangerous isn't the allegations themselves, it's the silence that follows. Silence isn't neutral. It isn't accidental. It isn't empty. Silence is a choice. And when that choice is made, while questions remain unanswered, contradictions unresolved, and patterns unexplained, people start looking for answers elsewhere. The internet becomes the memory, the court of public observation. Footage doesn't disappear. Past statements don't expire. Narratives don't reset just because someone wants them to. This story was never just about sexuality. It was never just about rumors. It was never just about one interview. It's about trust. Transparency. And what happens when public figures ask for understanding without offering clarity? Right now, two realities compete. One says this is all noise, bitterness, clout chasing, exaggeration. The other says noise doesn't get this loud without friction underneath it. The truth rarely announces itself all at once. It leaks. It surfaces. It waits for the right moment. So the question isn't whether you believe everything you've heard. The question is far simpler, and far more uncomfortable. If none of this matters, why does it keep coming back? And if even part of it does matter, who benefits most from the silence? We'll continue watching. We'll continue tracking what's said, and what isn't. And when the next piece surfaces, we'll break it down the same way, no hype, no emotion bait, just facts and the questions they raise. If you think this story ends here, history suggests otherwise. Some truths don't disappear, they wait.